We're living in very strange times at the moment. If you run one of the thousands of businesses in the UK that have been decimated by the lockdown, then you have my heartfelt sympathies. I know how long it takes to build up a successful business from scratch, and watching it all being undone in a matter of months is heartbreaking. I am a glass half full kind of person though, and I've had an idea that I haven't heard anyone else talking about, and I need your help. Hiya folks, welcome back to the Small Business Toolbox. I'm Andy Mack and I've been self-employed in one way or another for most of my adult life. Firstly, how are things? How is your business doing? I'm hearing a lot of mixed reports, and sadly over recent months most of them have been quite bad. I was chatting to a friend of mine the other day who's a professional photographer, and his business has been decimated. 95% drop in sales, which is awful to hear, especially since I know how much effort he put into building that business up from scratch. So do let me know how things are going for your business. Pop it in the comments below and give yourself a little plug as well. Post a link to your business. Do remember, if you post a link, it'll get quarantined and I have to release it just in case it's like spam and stuff like that. So just wait for me to unquarantine it and the link will appear. So don't panic if you post something and it doesn't appear straight away. I will release it. I just have to check that it's not just spammy stuff, basically. Anyway, as we come out of this difficult time, we've got a lot of work to do, and we've got a really good opportunity to change things up a bit and change how we do things. One thing I would personally love to see is more smaller businesses and less big global conglomerates. Small businesses are the backbone of our economy, and I don't want to live in a world where every shop on the high street is owned by the same parent company. So how can we make that happen? The way I see it, at the moment, businesses fall into three categories. You've got businesses who haven't been impacted by the lockdown at all, or might have even benefited from the lockdown. You've got businesses who have been impacted, but they were struggling anyway. And you've got businesses who have been impacted, but have really strong potential for growth. Obviously, of those three options, there's a mixture of small businesses and big conglomerates. So how can we encourage the growth of the smaller, potentially very successful businesses without giving taxpayer money away to giant companies who are already either very rich or were on the verge of going under regardless of the current financial climate? Well, my idea is to raise the current VAT threshold by a considerable amount, and I have no idea if this has got legs, but I would love to hear your thoughts on this. So let me explain why I think this would be a good idea, and then you can tell me why I'm completely nuts. I know there's a really good mix of small businesses, accountants and legal professionals who follow this channel, and I just think if we get the hive mind behind this, we can potentially come up with something really interesting. I'm going to tell you 4 different thresholds and ideas that I've come up with later on. For the minute, let me explain the crazy situation that we're in at the moment. So in the UK, obviously we've got this thing called VAT, value added tax. It's basically a sales tax paid by consumers. I'm not going to explain how it works. I've already made a video about that. I'll include a link in the description below. In a nutshell though, small businesses at the moment are given a bit of a head start, and they don't have to start charging VAT until their turnover goes past £85,000 per year. Generally speaking, they then need to register for VAT and increase all of their prices by potentially 20%. It's a massive ball ache because not only do you instantly become 20% more expensive, but you also now have to start submitting quarterly VAT returns to HMRC. For this reason, most very small businesses deliberately cap their growth to keep it below that £85,000 threshold. Let me give you an example. A friend of mine runs a bicycle repair business. It's one of the few businesses that have actually done quite well out of lockdown. They normally make a fairly decent living out of what they're doing, not enough to employ staff, but enough to make kind of an average wage. Now, as it happens, this business has started doing really well because everyone's got their bikes out, which is really good news, and everyone needs their bikes repaired. So he's busier than he's ever been, and he's rapidly come up to the VAT threshold. Now, he's not daft, and he knows that this is probably just a temporary peak in demand, so he really doesn't want to have to register for VAT and put all of his prices up and then start doing quarterly VAT returns. And as a result, he is genuinely considering just shutting the business down temporarily so that he doesn't have to register for VAT. He's made enough money for the year, so he's just going to have 6 months off, shut up the shop, and he'll come back to it 6 months later. Meanwhile, no one can get their bikes serviced because he's the main guy in town. To me, this is absolutely insane, but I can understand 100% where he's coming from. It's almost certainly a temporary spike in demand, and it's just not worth the hassle of becoming VAT registered. But what if it's not a temporary thing? What if his business has the potential to run at £85,000 or more on a more long-term basis? That's enough money that he could potentially take on a couple of members of staff, he could grow the business, he could get bigger premises. All of that in turn could result in more growth, and this is how businesses snowball. Another example, how about a plumber? I know loads of plumbers who, as soon as they start approaching the VAT threshold, they just curb everything to put the brakes on. It only takes a handful of central heating installs and you're already hitting the VAT threshold. So what do? You get the customer to buy the boiler directly from the supplier. You do everything you possibly can to avoid hitting that magic £85,000. I know of countless really successful trades companies who, as soon as they're getting close to the 85k, they just shut up shop. You wonder why you can't get a plumber or an electrician or a joiner or whatever. That is probably why. These are all potentially really good, profitable businesses who just don't want the hassle of VAT registration and putting all their prices up. It's a complete nightmare. And how about builders? 1 or 2 building projects like extensions and stuff like that, 1 or 2 in a year can push you beyond the VAT threshold before you've made a penny profit for yourself. Again, I've seen it all over the years, from taking huge cash payments through to the builders just basically getting the subcontractors to charge the customer directly for everything. And it's not a great way of working. It's a very unprofessional image that you portray to the customer when you go to a building company expecting them to do everything for you, and then you have to start paying the joiner and the electrician and the plumber separately. But this is the reality of the current system. No one wants to register for VAT. It's a nightmare. So we've got all of these really potentially great businesses, very profitable businesses, who could take on staff and they could grow into bigger premises. And at the moment, we're not encouraging that. And instead, we're subsidising conglomerates who were going to go bust anyway. And sorry, but I have very little sympathy for struggling airlines who were previously charging £20,000 and more for a single business class ticket. I don't think so. So I've come up with 4 potential solutions, and I'd love it if you could let me know in the comments below which one you think is the best idea. Please don't get your hopes built up that this is something that's ever going to happen. At the moment, it's just an idea and I'm putting it out there. Someone needs to run the numbers on this and work out if it would have a net positive effect on the economy, but my gut tells me that it would. I think this could potentially work, and I've learned to trust my gut over the years. It's normally right. So my first suggestion is a nominal increase in the VAT threshold, so the VAT registration threshold, take it up from £85,000 to £200,000. That would really take the brakes off for smaller players. They could grow to the size where they take on maybe 2 or 3 members of staff. Who knows, maybe one of them could be an admin person and they can help out doing VAT returns once you hit the £200,000 limit. But I think this idea could really potentially help very small businesses to blossom. My second suggestion is increasing the threshold all the way up to £500,000. This kind of gets your turnover in the remit of SMEs, and that would potentially encourage the growth of businesses with premises and maybe, 10 staff or thereabouts. My third suggestion, and yes, this is getting a little bit fringe, but I think it could work, is an increase in the VAT threshold all the way up to £1 million. So businesses with a turnover below £1 million wouldn't pay any VAT at all. They could potentially deregister if they wanted to. If they want to reduce their prices by 20% and be more competitive, they can. If they want to keep the prices the same and be more profitable so they can potentially take on more staff, then that's also good news. Why such a high threshold? Well, this could really encourage the growth of smaller retailers, restaurants, coffee shops, builders, basically companies that have a high turnover but not necessarily a very high profit. This would give those low profit, high turnover businesses a substantial competitive edge over your really big companies. My final suggestion, and this is a slightly more complicated one, is to change the threshold to just £100,000, but base it on profit rather than turnover. This might be a slightly harder thing for some businesses to calculate, but on the plus side, it would really help the likes of builders where they eat up their entire VAT threshold in 1 or 2 jobs. We desperately need to encourage more independent builders in the UK rather than the really big conglomerate house builders that are out there. The more smaller businesses we have doing that, the better. But at the moment, again, they're all inhibited by this kind of VAT threshold ceiling that we have at the minute. The only potential problem I can think of with this idea is that you could have businesses that have multi-million pound turnovers who deliberately keep their profits very low to stay under the VAT threshold. So for that reason, I would probably say a cap of like £1 million turnover or something like that anyway. So you basically say £100,000 profit threshold and £1 million turnover threshold. And after that, you have to register for VAT like you do at the moment. I also think for option 3 and 4 that you might have to put some provisions in place to stop really successful businesses who are growing very rapidly from instantly being bought out by bigger conglomerates, because that kind of defeats the object of all this. So perhaps put rules in place to say that the acquiring company has to pay back to the government any VAT saved through this new system over a rolling period of like 5 years or something. I don't know, I'm just chucking some ideas out there. Someone needs to run the numbers on this. But something needs to be done to stop the successful businesses from just being bought up by huge global conglomerates. I have no problems with companies being acquired, but the government shouldn't be subsidising that. What I really want to see is a flourishing economy filled with successful smaller businesses and entrepreneurs. Of course, the big thing about all of these suggestions is that it only benefits smaller businesses. It doesn't benefit the big conglomerates at all. Sorry, bigger businesses, but you got us in this mess in the first place. Now, one thing worth mentioning here is that our current threshold of £85,000 is already one of the highest thresholds in Europe. But to be honest, I don't particularly care about that. Every country in the world operates their taxes in a different way. We all have different living expenses. You know, you can't directly compare one country against another. What might work for the UK might not work for the likes of Greece. I'll tell you one thing though, whatever we're doing at the moment isn't working. We're subsidising really big businesses who are struggling while their CEOs are drawing multi-million pound salaries. Meanwhile, we've got some amazing smaller businesses who have real potential for growth and they've currently got the brakes on. I think we need to do something to take the brakes off. So what do you think? Let us know in the comments below. Do you think this has legs? Or do you think I'm being unrealistic? Obviously, as I've mentioned before, some really clever people need to run the numbers on this and kind of see if it all balances out. But I think the potential benefits from increased employment and having a better kind of small business atmosphere out there, I think that could massively outweigh any negatives of the government getting less money from VAT. The businesses are going to be paying out more money to the government in terms of income tax and corporation tax, and of course the employees are all going to be paying their own income tax as well. So I think it could potentially balance out, but someone needs to run the numbers. In a nutshell though, consumers would have more cash in their pockets, it doesn't subsidise the already profitable conglomerates, and small business would be put back at the heart of every community. I have written to Rishi Sunak suggesting some of these ideas, but so far I haven't heard anything back. If any of my viewers have a way of forwarding a link to this video over to Rishi, then please do so and let us know that you have in the comments below, or drop me a private note via the smallbusinesstoolbox.uk website. Do remember that this is just a pie in the sky idea at the moment, so don't get your hopes built up, but I do think we've got to do something to stop the likes of Amazon and Unilever from taking over the world. And at the end of the day, we're never going to get another opportunity like this in our lifetimes at least. So we either leave things the way they are or we change it now. Simple as that. Rishi, if you do end up watching this, please drop me a note to let us know. Contact details are on the Small Business Toolbox website, smallbusinesstoolbox.uk. Folks, please take care, look after yourselves. Don't forget to hit subscribe. Good luck on your small business journey, and I shall see you next time. Tatty bye!